It's me again. Do you prefer missional or attractional church? That's our question for today. And I told you if you listened live, we'd be in a mystery location before we define all those terms. I am now in my office. I thought we'd change this up for Brian overtime. I don't know if this is a change up or anything. Hannah said you wouldn't care where I am, but I am in my office, and I'll maybe give you a little tour here if you stick around to the end. It's very underwhelming. So what I want to talk to you about today is this difference between missional and attractional church, and find out where you lean. I'll tell you where I lean here in just a moment, but since I'm alone, this is going to require you to interact. So I see Mark O'Neill, you're watching. I will be expecting you to interact with me, sir. All right, so first of all, I was familiar with the term missional before. Good morning, Mike. I knew I could count on you, brother. Don't leave me hanging for Brian overtime. Live from my office. So missional is one of the ways to describe it is church without walls. Okay, church without walls. And Jeffrey likes the topic. Thank you. Yvonne, thank you. Deborah, hello. Yay, it's me. Hello. So church without walls. The missional church is the one that says essentially knock down the walls and go out and be the church in the community. Don't ask people to come to you. Don't try to get them to come to you as non-believers, but you go out and do your thing out. I was pointing, you couldn't see it. Out. I was going like that. But attractional was a new word to me in terms of what attractional church would be. Attractional church is a little bit different. Attractional church is the idea that you want to attract people to you. Like I'm very attractional. No, that's not what I meant. Attractional church is a church that's actually doing programming so effectively and is so excellent at what they do. They're encouraging people to come to them. Their events are located at their church. Their worship services are big and beautiful and people come in. And so there's really those two approaches. Like if your church does a trunk or treat coming up here next month, it's a very attractional activity. Come to us and we will bring you candy, and we'll do Halloween here. Or we're doing a Christmas program at VBS at our church. A missional church would say, hey, we're doing ministry at this park. Or we encourage you to go out and get involved in this local activity and be Jesus to the community around you. Which way do you lean? I'll tell you where I lean and why in just a minute here, but I want to look at some of your comments too. Mike is talking to Janelle. Janelle, if you're on now or reviewing later, happy Tuesday. We miss you. Brian's doing a great job multitasking though. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, Mike. I know. My wife can't even believe it. In fact, don't tell her, or else she'll expect me to do more at home. Mike says the home churches in Acts were attended by believers, but with the seeker-sensitive movement, churches tried to bring in unbelievers, but the gospel was watered down and gone, and the word sin and repent were missing. That is the seeker-sensitive thing. Hey, good morning, Callie. Glad you're here. Anxious to hear what you guys think on this. It sounds like Mike is learning or leaning towards the missional model. I want to be clear, though, that when I say attractional church, that you're attracting people to your church, it's not synonymous with gospel light. There are churches that are huge, that are preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ without excuse and with clarity. And so just being attractional in nature doesn't mean that you're like given the prosperity gospel. I think it's possible to be attractional and be solidly biblical. It's hard, I know, because in my mind I think of those like weak churches that just kind of like give you happy motivational speeches. But that's not necessarily what I mean by attractional. Which way do you lean? Do you lean attractional, like come to us, Christmas programming, VBS, trunk or treat, or do you prefer churches that are all missional? They say, look, come here on Sunday, but then get out of here, get out, go out somewhere else. Jeffrey jumping in, thanks, brother. You said, I don't know if my church, Willow Creek, invented the seeker-sensitive movement, and our pastor years later came out and said it was a mistake. Yeah, seeker-sensitive, I think Willow was one of the pioneers of the seeker-sensitive movement, without a question. Which is one of my small concerns about the attractional model, is if your goal is to bring people in, you've got to be really careful not to water down the gospel. And not also to be so focused on the outsider coming in that you aren't feeding the believer in the church. As in, Paul talks about we need to crave meat, not milk. Like you don't want to be a baby Christian just drinking milk. You want to be a mature Christian having meat. If you're a vegan, I don't know, large vegetables, however you want to put it. You want to be sure that you're doing that. And so the caution for those who view attractive model is, how do you do that? How do you be attractive to people in your church building without making it church light, not anti-gospel or false teaching. I'm saying just like too light. Deborah, we always use God's word for a guide for our answers. Much has been mentioned already during the morning section on this topic. What I've seen is that missional churches tend to become social gospels, therefore fitting into the society instead of being separated from it. There's a lot of truth in that. The danger for the missional church is that they're so focused on fulfilling the command to speak up for the oppressed and feed the poor and care for the widow that they almost forget to give the gospel. They're going, look, we're going to just give you all these things that you need, and eventually we'll get around to the gospel. That's the danger for the missional church, is you got to be sure that while you're out there doing God's work, being the hands and feet of Jesus, that you're actively being a true conveyor of the gospel in the midst of this. Yvonne says, is there any way that a church could have both of these missions in mind? I think there's a way to have both, but I think every church leans one direction or the other. Just like I think it's not possible for a news source to be unbiased, to be perfectly balanced. I think it's impossible for us as people to be unbiased and perfectly balanced. Churches have their leanings. Likely if you just spend a minute thinking about it, you'll go, yeah, my church does more missional things outside than things inside. Callie said, before I had my 3 kiddos, I was all about come and listen to our service, then leave. Now I look for one that's more geared towards doing activities with small family ideas. So Callie, your kids, you're saying, made you want to get out of the church walls, is what you're saying, rather than do a come-to thing. I'd love you to tell me more about that. That's interesting. Tamar said, I prefer missional. If we insist that people come to a building, then we're promoting a social club where preaching to the choir is the eternal standard. Yeah, Tamar, that is the danger that with that attractional model. It's if you know you got a whole bunch of unchurched people there, are you digging in and helping people grow in their walk with Christ, or are you consistently just at the entry level discussion? Jeffrey's reminding us that his church is not any more seeker sensitive. Yeah, I loved what Willow did years ago when they said, look, we did a survey, we found out the seeker sensitive model, which is different than attractional, was not effective. It's good for churches to say, we got to change what we're doing. Mike said community outreach is great and should be done, but if the church is only preaching the gospel every week, the believers will get bored. It's true. I agree with you. Tamar said, and church and good works don't stop on the Sabbath. Yeah, right. Good point. Aretha, hey Aretha, what's up? Good to see you. Glad you joined us in here. We're talking about the attractional versus missional models of church. Either come here, come to us, attractional. We're doing things here. We'd like to invite you. Missional is go out and do the church's work outside. Mark O'Neill says, I really don't know how to answer, Brian. I attend Grace in Middleburg Heights. They put on all sorts of wonderful activities, but our senior pastor is the VP of the Christian Missionary Alliance, so also very mission heavy. Best of both worlds? It's possible. Yeah, Jeff's right too here. Jeffrey's saying many good comments. This is what's interesting. Somebody called during the show today and they referenced a local mega church and said the mega church is missional. And honestly, the attraction model is in much of the literature I was looking at today, like this article from Ed Stetzer. The existence of megachurches prove that there is value in the attractional model, as in it's a big church, all these people coming to it, you've attracted them there. And Grace Church is it's a mega church. Wonderful place, been there a number of times, love that you go there, Mark. I've met a number of pastors there. Scott Lessing has been part of this program before. But I'd say aren't megachurches inherently attractional? Just because they're huge. I don't know, maybe you disagree with that. Callie says, yes, I do, because it's harder to get them to understand what God is about when the children don't get hands-on experience. Yeah. How do you teach your kids about Jesus? By saying the ideas but never doing the work. It's one thing to say, you got to love the poor. It's another thing to actually go with them and help the poor and love the poor. Now, I think both models have value. Where do I lean on this? Not that any of you care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I lean missional. Here's a couple of reasons I lean missional. I'm not saying attractional is wrong. I lean missional. I think if it's true that we live in a post-Christian nation in America, which we do, where Christian morality and belief is no longer the norm in culture, why would people come to us? they wouldn't accidentally come, and they'd see us probably as like, who are those people? Why would I go there? And so the idea that we're post-Christian, I think, inherently makes me lean slightly missional. And my heart also leans toward resources used for missions rather than programming. Like, I get it that you can be really effective, make a great program, do a really big thing, and people will come. But I always ask myself the question, could you do more with the resources it took, the tremendous resources, to bring all these people together? Could you do more for the disenfranchised and the downtrodden and the oppressed and the poor? Could you do more for them and make more of a kingdom difference than maybe the 2 or 3 people that happen to be in a position to come into the church and get saved? I'm not saying it doesn't have value, I just lean that way. And I think there's a bigger danger, just personally, in the both sides have their dangers. The missional side, the danger is you don't give the gospel, you just are social minded. The attractional church's concern is they lean towards church light. They get the gospel, but not much deeper than that, not tons of Christian living. And so I would rather be giving people the meat on the weekends to truly understand the depth and breadth and complexity of faith so that they can go out in the complexities of life. So that would make me lean in the missional direction, but not devalue the attractional model. Callie's saying, we donate food to a local food bank and then teach them it's a good thing to do and how God was able to feed the poor. Yeah, that's a great way to put feet to your faith and make that happen. Ooh, I've got Mike stopping by. Come in, Mike.
Mr. Dolan.
Yes, sir.
I brought you your cup of coffee.
Oh,
I'm going to go wash your car now. I'll pick you up some muffins and bring those back to you.
Great. Yeah.
Thank
Great.
you, Mr.
Good.
Dolan. Great job
Don't
this
forget
morning.
to pick up my dry cleaning, Mike, okay, when you're finished with
Oh,
it.
that's a giant eagle, right? Okay.
And next time, be sure to use my mug, which reminds people that I'm a stud, but it's gone. My stud mug is gone!
I'll go buy you a new one, Mr. Dolan.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Goodbye, Brian.
It's all an act. Don't believe it one another. Thanks, Mike. Aretha says, I agree with you, Brian. My church does both. I think every church does an element of both. It really does. It does do have my church, I think, does a little bit of both. Leans missional, but does attractional. We're talking about doing a trunk or treat this year. Deborah, yes, do not bring me pumpkin spice latte. I don't want that. Jeffrey, I agree, Brian, that I've learned from the show that the church is the hope of the world, leaning to missional. Sure, I get it. No Brian Janelle mug. I know, Kelly. What was happening there? What was Mike thinking? Oh, here's my stud mug. Look, this is my mug, even though it's backwards for you probably. It says not Duts, but stud. It does say Duts as well, I suppose. So I think the key to this for me, though, is that we have our leanings we have to acknowledge, but we have to remember that just because it's our preference doesn't mean it's right or wrong. I have seen megachurches attract lots of people and do attractional model events that are really incredible. I know a church that it feels missional, but it's actually attractional. The church will have a food bank every week, a food bank and meal at their church every week, and people in need come to them. Doesn't that sound like a mix of attractional and missional? You want to go out and help people with their needs, but it happens to be in the building. And so there is this difficulty of trying to figure out the balance of them. But please, I would say be careful. I lean missional, but I value the attractional model. It does work. And I can't stand here and say that you shouldn't do it just because I prefer the missional model. Something to consider, maybe talk about with you and your family. Even, I think it'd be interesting if you want to analyze, really sit down and think, is your church truly missional? Does your church say, tear down the walls and get out of here and do God's work? Or are you attractional, as in, what new thing are we going to do to bring people into our building? Which one are you? And how effective are you at doing that? It's my thought for today. By the way, let me give you a little tour of the office, just for those who stuck around, in case you care. We're in my office right now, and here's my view out my window. Isn't that pretty? Look at all those trees. We're in the woods here. I'm going to pick up the camera here. I got my little chair and my fake radio, all my books and stuff, a picture of my own face up on the wall. This was from an event we did with Hannah Knits, pretend microphone, my really messy desk with stuff laying all over it. Is that exciting for you? Old pictures of my family that I have to update. My wife and kids from many years ago. My boys from many years ago. My girls many years ago. I need to update that. Anywho, is that a toy on the bottom shelf? Yes. Yeah. I've got a lot of toys down there. Behind the scenes info, years ago, Kathleen and I had this idea that never came to fruition. The idea was we would have a Brian and Kathleen game night where we would like play games together and have intense competition and make little funny videos out of it. It never came to fruition, so I have that pie face game here, and I'm too lazy to bring it anywhere. The toys are for my kids. Callie saw my Ohio State football. Yes, the Farinis gave that to me when I started working here, and my kids play with it. I love Ohio State simply because I live in Ohio, and I'm required to. Did you solve the Rubik's Cube, or is that like that since you bought it? Oh, Mike, you know the answer to that. This Rubik's Cube has always been in this condition. I couldn't solve this if I tried, but it's a fancy Moody Radio one. We made these years ago. So I couldn't possibly do that. Neat for a man's office, Yvonne says. Well, here's the deal. I cleaned it last week, and if you would have seen this a while ago, you would have been like a little horrified. I'm a piler. So there's the organized people that have all their files and stuff, and there's piler. And I'm a piler. I make piles of things. You always have perfect hair. Well, it's a difficult job, Callie. Someone's got to do it. Just got a haircut. But this takes more time than you realize. Oh boy, awkward. Anita Morrison joined up just in time for it to be over. First Lady, good to see you, my friend. You're wondering what's happening this time. We've already had our discussion, and I was doing a quick tour of the office. Of course, don't forget, within arm's reach, hand sanitizer. Can't forget that. I don't know what else I could tell you that I have in here of consequence. Come by and see us sometime, though. 2 seconds? Kelly, is that how long it takes you to do your hair? No, it doesn't take that long, actually. They cut in this hard part here with a razor, so I don't have to find it. That makes it helpful. You can do that Rubik's Cube. Google the algorithms. Sarah, I know my son has done this before, but again, my laziness comes in. I don't know that I care enough about solving the Rubik's Cube to look up how to do it. And then I hate math enough that I see the word algorithm and I instantly freeze. I'm like, I don't know algorithms. I don't know how to do them. These go well. You guys are overstaffed. Yeah, I suppose. What else could I tell you of? Oh, you know what else I have in here you'll think is interesting. Yeah, you can always watch again. That's right. Messy ponytail on my hairstyle of choice, Kelly. There's nothing wrong with the messy ponytail. But I will say, I have a number of books on my shelf. One of the ones that's just ridiculous, because I'm never going to read this, is, oh, it looks so decorative, Brian. Shakespeare. What am I doing with this in my office? I have no excuse. If someone said, why is that here? I'd say, I don't know. Because it makes me look smart. The complete works of Shakespeare in my office. Ridiculous. It's right next to my Zondervan Handbook of the Bible, just to make it seem like I'm very intellectual. Yeah. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the new location for Brian Overtime. Janelle's back tomorrow. If you missed her, it'll be Brian and Janelle Overtime tomorrow. God bless you guys. Have a great day. We will see you soon. Love you, friends.